Good morning. This is the day the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. Happy Lord's Day. Today we continue our study in Joshua about the Promised Land. Today we're going to be studying about Rahab the harlot and the memorial stones and the crossing of the Jordan River. But first, let's pray together. Dear Lord Jesus, I just lift up this lesson to you that you'll be honored and glorified, that in all ways, Lord, you will be lifted up, and that, Lord, we'll learn more about you and our relationship to you through this message. I ask for a special word for each person listening and all those that will be hearing this lesson today. Lord, be with our worship services today. Be with Pastor Tim and Jamie and those leading in worship and the sound and every part of it, Lord, that you will be honored and glorified. And Lord, I just lift up all the prayer requests on people's hearts, Lord, those that are carrying heavy burdens, those that are having financial issues, those that are sick, and those that have lost loved ones. Lord, we lift them up to you, and I lift up those unspoken requests that people, they may not even know how they should pray for it, but you know, God. And we ask you to intervene for them as well. Speak to each heart what we need to hear today. We love you and honor you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, today we're going to continue our study in Joshua chapter 2, Rahab the harlot. What a beautiful story of redemption. This is so beautiful passage in Scripture. So as we studied last week, they're preparing to cross over. Moses has passed away. He went up in the mountain and God buried him. And God showed him all the promised land. And then now the people are preparing. They were told to sanctify themselves, to prepare for crossing over in 3 days. So Joshua sends out spies. Chapter 2 of Joshua. Now Joshua the son of Nun sent out 2 men from Achaia Grove to spy secretly, saying, "Go view the land, especially Jericho." Well, the last time they sent out spies, it didn't go so well. Not because the land wasn't worthy, not because the Lord didn't send them, but because the report they gave was a bad report, and it caused the people to wander in the wilderness for 40 years because they believed the 10 over the 2, Joshua and Caleb, who said, "We can take it because God said it's ours." They were worried about walled cities. They were worried about giants in the land. They were worried about being able to overcome because they were looking in their strength and not God's. So now Joshua's sending out spies, but they have a different attitude this time. So they went and came to the house of a harlot named Rahab and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, "Behold, men have come here tonight from the children of Israel to search out the country." So the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all the country." So first they enter the town, and you know, it's amazing how when you go by faith, how God provides. And God, he just shows, you know, how much love and passion he has for all people, because God gave them a home with a harlot. But what's so beautiful about it is that it is the plan of God. If you think about what Jesus did, he was called the friend of sinners. They always ask him, "Why are you spending time with tax collectors and publicans and sinners?" Because he came to save them. Because that's who he came to bring to God. He came to seek and save that which was lost. But you remember the story of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. And Zacchaeus climbed up in a tree because he wanted to see Jesus. He needed hope. He needed purpose. And Jesus said, "Zacchaeus, come down, for today I shall dine at your house." And Zacchaeus showed his change by giving back all he had cheated. 4 times what he had cheated, and 4 times those that he had defrauded, and half of what he owed to the poor. So Zacchaeus was one that Jesus spent time with. Matthew, the tax collector, he went in with all his friends who were sinners and tax collectors. But God had a plan, and Jesus was coming to bring back Matthew, who became one of his disciples. And then, of course, the woman caught in adultery, also a harlot. And as she was caught in adultery, Jesus, when they were saying, "Teacher, what do you say? She should be stoned according to the law." She was caught in the very act. Jesus wrote in the sand and said, "Let the one without sin cast the first stone." And then as all the people one by one left, then she was standing alone with Jesus, and Jesus said, "Where are those that condemn you?" She said, "Nowhere, Lord." He said, "Then neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." You see, the Lord doesn't look at your past. He looks at your future. He looks at redemption, of changing your life, to make a difference in your life. We have a beautiful Savior. That's why He came in the first place. So He chose Rahab the harlot for a purpose, and we're going to see the purpose in a little bit. So it says that the king was told that 2 men had secretly come in. They leave the gates open during the day and they close them at night. So the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men." Then the woman took the 2 men and hid them. So she said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from." And it happened as the gate was being shut, when it was dark, that the men went out. Where the men went, I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you may overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them with the stalks of flax, which she had in order on the roof, laid in order on the roof. Then the men pursued them by the road and the Jordan to the fords. And as soon as those who pursued them had gone out, they shut the gate. Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof, and said to the men, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land are faint-hearted because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. As soon as we heard these things, our hearts melted. Neither was there any more courage left in us, in anyone because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in heaven above and on earth beneath." So Rahab tells those who were from the king that they must have snuck out. Said they were here, but they left. And they snuck out before the gates were closed, and so they sent them out to follow the men. Well, she tells these spies, she said, and the reason why she was protecting them, she said, "We've heard how you crossed the Red Sea. We know that you serve the true living God." And she showed a fear of God. And she said, and we understand how can we beat somebody who opens the Red Sea? And how can we beat someone? We heard what you did to the kings of the Amorites. And just to give you a little background, I'm going to read for you Numbers 21, where Sihon and Og were defeated. And it begins in verse 21, where it says, "Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, 'Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into the fields or vineyards. We will not drink water from your wells. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through the territory.' But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all the people together and went out against Israel in the wilderness, and came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. Then Israel defeated him by the edge of the sword, and took possession of the land as far as from Arnon to Jabbok, as far as the people of Ammon, and the border of the people of Ammon was fortified." So they defeated this king, this strong king in a fortified city, and they conquered a strong king of Ammon named Sihon. Now Og is further down in that passage, verse 33. "And they turned and went up by the way of Bashan. So Og, king of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Endrei. Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Do not fear him, for I have delivered him into your hand, with all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbah.'" So they defeated Sihon and Og as God directed them. They wanted to pass through their land. They wouldn't let them, but they actually bore arms against Israel, which was a mistake. So Rahab said the word had gotten out, and we understand what has happened. And we realize, how are we going to win when those things happen? But she even said that our hearts have melted within us. They're the ones with the armed men. They're the ones with the army and military, and they're the ones with the walled city. And yet they're the ones fearful. You see, God can prepare the hearts of those. When your heart is toward Him and you do His purpose, God can beat the enemy before you even show up. And that's what God does. But the previous spies did not believe God's report. And they came back saying, we can't beat them. There's giants and there's walls. But they didn't take into account what God could do. So Rahab showed herself faithful when she said this. Now, therefore I beg you, she says, swear to me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, and you also will show kindness to my father's house, and give me a true token, or a pledge, a true pledge, or a sure sign. Give me a sign. Give me a sign I can count on. And spare my father, my mother, my brothers, and my sisters, and that all they have, and deliver our lives from death. So the men answered her, our lives for yours, if none of you tell this business of ours. And it shall be, when the Lord has given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with you. Then they let down by the rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall. She dwelt on the wall, and she said to them, get out to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you. Hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Afterward you may go your way. So the men said to her, we will be blameless of this oath of yours, which we have made us swear, unless, when we come into the land, you bind this line of scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you bring your father, your mother, your brothers, and all your father's household to your own home. And it shall be, whoever goes outside the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we will be guiltless. And whoever is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head, if a hand is laid on him. And if you tell this business of ours, then we will free from the oath which we made you swear. So the men tell her how this is the sign we're going to give you. Give me a sign. Show me that you're going to protect me and protect my family and my household when you come in. She believes God and she knows they're going to win. That's faith. She believed in God. And you know, I thought of this and I said, well, she lied. I mean, she's a harlot and she lied. But I want you to hear, she's in the heroes of faith. Hebrews 11:31 says, by faith the harlot Rahab did not perish with those who did not believe, when she had received the spies with peace. Because it was her faith. She believed God. She feared God. And she asked for a sign of deliverance. James 2:25, likewise was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works, when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead. She was justified by her faith, and her works followed it up by the way she protected them. In spite of her faults, God shows her redemption. And it gets even more beautiful than that. So she sends them out, but they said, I want you to tie this scarlet cord on this rope. She lived on the wall right by the gate. And so she let down a rope to let them out. She tells them to go hide in the hills till the men come back, lest they overtake you. And after 3 days, then you can go back. So she tells them how to protect themselves as well. But in addition to that, they tell her to put this scarlet cord, the token, the sign, the pledge, the sure sign. Why do you think it's scarlet? Scarlet is used throughout the Bible in the Old Testament to refer to the blood of the Lamb. But look at it even further. Keep all your household, all your brother's family, your sister's families, and all your family. Make sure they stay in the house. Because if they go out, we can't promise you protection. They got to stay under the blood. They got to stay under the scarlet cord. And then if you stay there, and as long as you don't say this work of ours, and as long as you don't reveal who we are, then we will know that then we will be guilty of not protecting you. But this is just like the Passover. They're covered, those in the household. They couldn't leave the household, and they were to apply the blood to the doorpost. This is a redemption story. And if you follow this and tie this scarlet cord We will save you when we come into the town. What a beautiful story. And then it says, then she said, according to your words, so be it. Just like Jesus says, as you have spoken, so shall it be. It's so amazing. And she sent them away, and they departed. And she bound the scarlet cord in her window. She showed the faith with the sign. They departed and went to the mountain and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers returned. The pursuers sought them all along the way, but did not find them. So the 2 men returned and descended from the mountain, crossed over, and they came to Joshua, son of Nun, and told him all that had befallen them. And they said to Joshua, truly the Lord has delivered all this land into our hands. For indeed all the inhabitants of the country are faint-hearted because of us. Isn't this amazing? You know, here they go back, and what a difference in the report they give. We've won. I mean, God provided us a place to stay as soon as we walked in the door, and this woman took care of us and protected us. And then we got the report that their hearts were already defeated. They've been defeated already. All we got to do is take it. What a beautiful report. But I got to close this with what happened to Rahab. How is God so involved with Rahab's life? Because it doesn't end there. It's a story of redemption, but it's how God used her later. Rahab. Her husband's name was Salmon. And they had a son named Boaz, who married a woman, a Moabitess named Ruth, who was the great-grandmother of King David. And then Jesus was of the line of David. God allowed her to be in the line of Jesus Christ. I mean, she is in the lineage of Christ. What a beautiful story of redemption from Rahab, the harlot. Okay, crossing the Jordan, chapter 3. Then Joshua rose early in the morning and set out from Acacia Grove and came to the Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they crossed over. So it was after 3 days that the officers went through the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priest and the Levites bearing it, then you shall set out from the place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it about 2,000 cubits by measure, which is about a half a mile, pretty good distance. Do not come near it, that you may know by which way you must go, for you have not passed this way before. You've not gone this way before. This is a new path. This is a new covenant. This is a new deliverance. God's going to do something new. But he says, when you see the Ark of the Covenant, prepare your hearts, because when you see it and he passes through the camp, get up and follow it. You know, there's a teaching in Experiencing God that Henry Blackaby talks about. When you see God move, follow him. I remember a sign I saw a long time ago that says, don't get ahead of God, he might not follow you. It's a good idea to follow God in where you're going if you want to have good success and be prosperous no matter which way you go. So they were to follow this ark and to follow it to the border of the river. And Joshua said to the people, sanctify yourselves, or consecrate yourselves, be holy, prepare to meet. You got to get serious about God. You got to search him with all your heart, then he will hear. If you hearken and you hear his voice, then he will hear you when you give him your whole heart. Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. If you follow God, the pure in heart shall see God. The effectual, fervent prayer of the righteous avails much. It's those who sanctify themselves. The power of God works through them, and you will be able to see wonders. God's always doing wonders. You'll be able to see the hand of God work when you follow him and you're following his path, because you're sanctifying yourself. You will see God do great things. You will see God. Then Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, take up the ark of the covenant, cross over before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua, this day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that that I am with you, just as I was with Moses. You shall command the priests to bear the ark of the covenant, saying, When you come to the edge of the water of the Jordan, you shall stand in the Jordan. So God says, Joshua, the people are going to know to fear you and to trust you when you see the work of God that he's going to do through you. Just as I was with Moses, I will be with you. And remember, he told him 3 times, be strong and courageous. So he tells them to go stand in the Jordan with the Ark of the Covenant, dip their feet in it. So Joshua said to the children of Israel, come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, by this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, and the Gigazites, and Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over before you in the Jordan. Therefore, take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man for every tribe. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priest who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, the waters that come down from upstream, that they shall stand up as a heap. He said, you will know, and this will be a sign to you, when the waters stop in the Jordan, and you cross over on dry land, when the ark enters the water with the people. And he says, when you cross over, you'll know that I'm going to give you victory. That is a great sign. I think I would have confidence too if I crossed the Jordan on dry land and God showed me that, and I heard the report of the spies that they're already defeated anyway. So it was when the people set from their camp to cross over the Jordan with the priests bearing the Ark of the Covenant before the people. And as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priest who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan was overflowing its banks during the whole time of harvest, that the waters which came down from upstream stood still and rose a very heap, very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zaratan. This is amazing. They stand in the water, and they're told to go there, but God throws this in there so that we will realize that this is a miracle. You know, there's so many people try to explain the crossing of the Red Sea and the Jordan that God must have did it at low tide, and there was a heavy wind blowing to stop the water, to push it back. But it wasn't that case at all. In fact, it says the Jordan was overflowing its banks because it was time of harvest. And so it was overflowing. It was higher than normal. And he had to point that out. But this hit me as I read it. And I don't think it's there by accident, that when they stepped in the water will stand up as a heap. In other words, it was blocked on one side, but far away at a city called Adam. You know, I've never seen this city called Adam before in the Bible. It may be in there, but I'm not aware of it. But it was far away, and I had to think of Adam and Eve. And I thought, God's going all the way back to Adam. And he's going, because it's a far way away, and the water's going to stand up there. God's going to stop the flow of sin from there, and God's going to deliver us from what happened, the fallen nature of man, to start a new life. This is a redemption story. This is the God answering our prayers to deliver us from the sin nature and the fall of man. I mean, that's not by accident. So then it goes on and it says, so the city is beside Zaratan. So the waters that went down into the camp to the Sea of Arabah, the salt sea, failed. So all the way down till you get all the way to the Dead Sea, the river dried up because it stood up in a heap. And it says, and were cut off, and the people crossed over opposite Jericho. But not just on land. I mean, soggy land. It was dry land. That means that God sucked up all the water in the bottom of the river as well. That's amazing. Then the priest who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan. And all Israel crossed over on dry ground until all the people had crossed completely over the Jordan. What an amazing thing that they did this. One last part as we cross over and we continue this study, chapter 4, the memorial stones. This is an amazing thing. So they crossed over, the crossing of the Jordan, another miracle. And it came to pass when all the people had completely crossed over the Jordan that the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Take for yourselves 12 men of the people, one man from every tribe. Then command them, saying, Take for yourselves 12 stones from here, out of the midst of the Jordan, from the place where the priest's feet stood firm. You shall carry them over with you and leave them in the lodging place where you lodge tonight. So they were told that each tribe had to carry a stone out of the midst of the Jordan. I'm sure they picked the biggest ones they could find. And so in the middle of the Jordan, where the priest's feet stood, where the ark stood in the middle, they were to pick 12 stones, one for each tribe. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had appointed from the children of Israel, one man from every tribe. And Joshua said to them, Cross over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of the Jordan. And each one of you shall take a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. When your children ask in time to come, saying, What do these stones mean to you? Then you shall answer them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when we crossed over the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be as a memorial to the children of Israel forever. So they're building an altar on the other side with the 12 stones that are in the middle of the Jordan, so that they can teach the next generation and then the next generation. When they come to that altar, they'll say, That's where God opened the Jordan River, and that's where we crossed over to the promised land, so that your children will believe. And the children of Israel did so, just as Joshua commanded, and it's also a reminder for them for the promises of God that he kept. And the children of Israel did so, just as Joshua commanded, and they took up 12 stones from the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord had spoken to Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, carried them over to the place where they lodged, and they laid them down there. Then Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan. This is a different set. 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priest who bore the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there to this day. So there were two altars, one in the midst of the Jordan, which is going to be covered up, by the way. 12 stones in the middle, 12 stones on the outside as a sign that God keeps his promises, to always remember what God did here, a marker. So the priest who bore the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything had finished, that the Lord had commanded Joshua to speak to the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua, and the people hurried and crossed over. Then it came to pass, when all the people had completely crossed over, that the ark of the Lord and the priest crossed over in the presence of the people. Once the people got all across, it's kind of interesting. I just noticed it said the people crossed over in haste. They have faith, but it's like, I don't think we want to linger here, while that water's held up. But it says they crossed over while the ark stood in the middle, and then they followed after everybody was on the other side. And the men of Reuben, the men of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh crossed over armed before the children of Israel, as Moses had spoken to them. About 40,000 prepared for war crossed over before the Lord for battle to the plains of Jericho on that day. The Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of Israel, and they feared him as they had feared Moses in all the days of their life. So Joshua was revered as a leader, and they knew he was the leader. And they stood in awe of Joshua as they did Moses, because of the things God did to exalt him. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Command the priest who bear the ark of the testimony to come up from the Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priest, saying, Come up from the Jordan. And it came to pass, when the priest who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priest's feet touched the dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed all its banks as before. So the water flowed over. But these two altars, I got to talk about this for a minute. One is on the outside, one is on the inside. One is inside the river that no one will see, but it's there to this day, it says. There's a marker inside and there's a marker outside. I thought of this and I said, are there markers in your life where you can look at it and say, that's where God moved? That's where he answered my prayer. And I remember God calling me. And I remember how God protected me and how God was with me and how God moved. And I remember the great testimonies and how I was on fire for God. The altar on the outside. But you can't have an altar on the outside unless you have an altar on the inside. Why the second altar? Because God knows that where that altar exists, you have to have a heart for God. You need an altar on the inside, so the altar on the outside will mean something. What a promise from God. Now the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal on the east side of the Jordan. And those 12 stones which they stood out of Jordan, Joshua set up from Gilgal. And he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask your fathers, and time comes, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over on the Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you, until all had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us, which he had crossed over, that all the people of the earth may know that the hand of God, the Lord, that he is mighty, and that you may fear the Lord your God forever. So this altar was there as a reminder to them and to teach their children the great things God has done. It's not important just that we know about God, but we need to teach our children about God. How God moved in our lives and how he was faithful to us and how he answers prayer and how it makes a difference how you live and that you sanctify yourself so you can see God and see God work and your eyes will be open and you will follow and keep your eyes on him. But it's not just for them, because it said, so all people will know that I am God. Why is this story of the Red Sea and the crossing of the Jordan in the Word of God? So all people will know and all people will believe because of all. You think all these things are there for a reason? Rahab the harlot, the memorial stones. God is showing us that we live under the true Almighty God, the Ancient of Days, who is our deliverer, who believes in redemption. And though your life, though you be as sinners, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, but the free gift of God is eternal life in all those who believe. Praise God for the crossing of the Jordan and the memorial stones and redemption of Rahab and the line of Jesus. The scarlet cord that flows through the Bible from the Old Testament to the New and gives us deliverance. Next week, Joshua's going to meet a special visitor, and then we'll have the Battle of Jericho. Let's pray. Thank you, Lord. We give honor to your name. Worthy is your name. Thank you for deliverance. Thank you for redemption. And thank you that we serve a mighty God who is for us. And if God is for us, who can be against us? In Jesus' name, amen.